So as I ended the previous video saying, this is the first way that we can use for loops to help us print out a string to the screen by character. So notice here I added in a little new line just to separate the second example. But my second example, what I'm going to do is cycle through every character of a string, and I'll say we do know the length. And then from here, we're going to use the indexed notation. So that means we're going to use those square brackets. So here, we're going to type in a different message. So we'll do message 2. And this one, I'm not going to prompt the user because I need to know the length. So we're going to give it a value. So notice here, this has a length of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 characters. So notice this has 6 characters with indexing that goes from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want to print out indexes 0 through 5, which means I need to cycle through the numbers 0 through 5. So we're going to use a for loop from last chapter, for I in range. And if we do 6, this will cycle from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. The other way you could do this is you could cycle 0 to 5 and increase by 1. It doesn't matter which you use. Whichever one you like best is fine. I'm just going to use the simplest one. So from here, what I want to do is I'm going to have a new variable called character. And what I'm going to do every single time this program runs is I'm going to look at message 2. That's the name of my variable. And what I'm going to do there is I'm going to look at a particular index. Now I want to look at indexes 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the way up to 5. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say message, and then for my index here, I'm going to use my for loop. So I'm going to do I. So the first time this runs, I will be set to 0. This will find the character at index 0, which will be H. It'll save H inside of character, and then if I tell it to print character to the screen, it will do so. Then the second time it goes through, it'll increment to 1. So now it'll look at the index at 1, which will be E. And then it will print that character to the screen. So if I do this, a little upset, for I, that's because I forgot the word in. So there we go. For I in range, please enter a message. So this is the first one we did, where we just did enter in your own and it'll print it out. But then looks at the second one, because we already entered in a string, does it automatically. So it looks at all 6 characters, indexes 0 through 5, and prints them out to the screen. So this is called forward indexing. And what we're going to look at next is called backwards indexing. Okay, so we're going to look at backwards indexing next. So here it says what happens when a negative number is placed in the index. So let's put some comments around this so we don't lose the code. You still want to be able to access it. But let's see what happens if we have message 3. Say we typed in our name. So I'm going to type in my first name. What I'm going to do is I'm just going for fun. I'm going to do character 2. And let's do message 3. And let's look at index negative. And then let's print that to the screen. This is just an experiment. Maybe make a note of that if you're trying it out on your own. Experiment with backwards indexing. Okay. So this is going to run. And notice here that it prints out R to the screen. Okay, so that was helpful. So maybe we'll just do here index negative 3. And I should put my colon in here. Now let's try out, we'll do a different one. We'll do message 3 and we'll do index negative 1. Then we'll print index negative 1 to the screen, print out character 2 again. If you look here, index negative 1 is H. Index negative 3 is R. So what's really happening here is backwards indexing starts going backwards on the string, but it doesn't start here at 0. So S is always 0. Backwards indexing then does -1, -2, -3, -4, and then the capital S would again be -5. So that's how backwards indexing works. So I kind of typed it in a little bit more confusing there, but the big thing you need to know is backwards indexing goes backwards through a string. So, and it starts at -1. So whereas S starts at 0 and goes 0, forward indexing, 1, 2, 3, 4. Backwards indexing will do -1 right away, -2, -3, -4, and then -5. So that's the notes that you need to take on backwards indexing here. We have HELLO, and we have our backwards indexing here. And then it says backwards indexing signals to the computer to count backwards within the string. It does not start at 0. Index 0 is always the first character in this string. So H will always be first. If it's the first character at 0, and then if we count forward, E is 1. If we count backwards, O is -1. So here it asks you to find the string that's at various locations. So string 0, so I guess the character at index 0 for string 1 is still H. That one hasn't changed. -4 would start, -1 is the exclamation point, -2 is the K, -3 is the C, -4 is the U. And then here, -8, so we have -1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 is M. -12, we do 0, 1, or sorry, -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, -6, -7, -8, -9, -10, -11, -12 is the comma. And then -16, so -1, -2, -3, -4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So 16 is our H. So index of -16 is our H. And if you think back to when we did forward indexing, there wasn't a forward index of 16 because we only went 0 to 15. So backwards indexing is just a little bit different. The last thing I want to look at that I skipped through up here is a lot of students, when we run this, so I'm going to put another multi-line comment down here. Students don't like is they don't like that when they print things out to the screen, they're all printing on a different line. So if you did exercise 13 in the last unit, you saw this taking place. What I want to do is just focus up here at this first for loop that we dealt with. There's something we can add in called the end that allows us to change what Python does at the end of a print statement. So right now, by default, it will press enter and go to the next line. But what we can actually do is we can tell it to end with something different. So some of you already understood this part. If you did, you can skip the next video. If you struggled with this in the last lesson, you go through here, you can add a space instead. And what this tells Python, so if you do your print statement, comma, and then these words end, with something different between the quotations, Python will actually put that at the end of every single thing. So if you want to print out everything to the screen, so say we did hello, we can print it all out on the same line by adding this end piece in here. So we have what we want to print, comma, end, and then we can put a space inside of there. And so we want it to print a space between every letter. Maybe you want it to put the number 7 between every letter to drive somebody nuts. How puts a 7 between everyone. You could put a tab. You can switch it around and put the tab code for Python rather than the accidental / I put there. Notice there you have lots of different options that you can add in if you want to space out your characters differently rather than putting them each on the same line. So now hopefully you have a solid understanding of indexing. There's one more video that goes along with this lesson to talk about concatenation and repetition.